Hello there, and welcome to Dream Past Diaries. I'm truly glad you've made it here. Maybe it's been a long day, or maybe you're the kind of dreamer who prefers to drift off to the sound of quiet thoughts and forgotten mysteries instead of counting sheep. Either way, tonight's story is yours to enjoy. You don't have to do anything now, just rest. Let your thoughts slow, your breath deepen, and your body grow lighter, as if gravity itself has begun to fade away.
In the early hours of the morning, when the sun had only begun its gradual ascent above the horizon, casting a faint, diffused light over the landscape, life in the 19th century moved with a deliberate, unhurried rhythm, a rhythm dictated not by schedules of modern invention, but by the subtle, natural cues of light, temperature, and the gentle passage of hours. In small towns and villages across Europe, the waking of the day began with the quiet stirring of households, the soft sounds of wooden shutters being opened to admit the earliest rays of sunlight, the gentle creak of floorboards under the weight of slow, careful steps, and the faint rustle of linens as those still resting began to turn with languid motion. The kitchens, often modest rooms with low ceilings and windows framed in wood, would fill gradually with the aroma of warm porridge, sometimes enriched with a small measure of honey or milk, the heat from the hearth curling into the corners of the room like a gentle, protective presence. Outside, the cobbled streets glistened faintly with the dew of night, each stone holding a tiny reflection of the burgeoning day, and the soft tapping of horse hooves could be heard in the distance as a solitary rider moved from one side of the village to the other, carrying news or supplies. The villagers themselves began their routine slowly, deliberately, with a measured cadence that allowed them to feel each movement as part of a larger, continuous pattern. The scraping of chairs across the floor as they gathered for breakfast, the turning of pages in simple books or ledgers, the soft murmur of greetings exchanged in tones barely above a whisper, so as not to disturb the delicate quiet of morning. In homes of greater refinement, the interiors were furnished with heavy wooden furniture polished to a muted sheen, and the air often carried a subtle fragrance of waxed floors, lavender sachets, or the faint trace of candle smoke from the previous evening. The light that entered through large windows, often draped with sheer curtains, revealed the texture of fabrics in delicate detail, the weave of a woolen shawl, the embroidery on a handkerchief, the subtle gloss of leather-bound books carefully arranged on shelves. The inhabitants moved among these objects with awareness, handling each with care, brushing dust from surfaces with soft cloths, and arranging items in a pattern that was pleasing to the eye yet consistent with centuries-old tradition. In such households, children were encouraged to participate in these quiet tasks, learning from their elders the patience and rhythm of domestic life, the satisfaction of completing small, deliberate actions, the simple joy of seeing the polished surfaces gleam, the cupboards orderly, the hearth warm and welcoming. Outside these homes, the streets themselves were places of gentle activity, with vendors setting out produce on wooden stalls, the plumpness of apples and pears carefully displayed to catch the morning light, the color of fresh greens arranged in small, neat heaps, and the sound of quiet negotiation drifting along the street in a rhythm as soft as the light. The perception of these early hours was not only shaped by sights and sounds but also by subtle experiences. The coolness of air on bare skin, the faint brush of wind through hair, the delicate scent of flowers opening to the day. People of this time, unburdened by the persistent hum of machinery, were attuned to these gentle impressions, noticing the soft gurgle of water in fountains or streams, the muted rustle of leaves in the slow morning breeze, the distant crow of a rooster marking the passage of time. Even the way light fell upon objects, the gradual lengthening of shadows, the warmth of sunlight spreading across the stone or wood, was something observed with patience, appreciated for the slow unfolding of natural phenomena that modern life often overlooks. In the mind of a person accustomed to such rhythms, these details were neither hurried nor ignored. They were absorbed in a manner that created a quiet, reflective awareness, a sense of being fully present in each minute, each motion, each breath. Within this environment, the act of seeing and noticing became a form of gentle meditation. Children might pause to watch the shifting pattern of sunlight on the floor, noting the way it illuminated dust motes that floated lazily in the air, moving with an imperceptible, almost hypnotic grace. Adults might linger near the window, their hands resting lightly on the sill, observing the interplay of shadow and form in the garden below, or watching the slow, deliberate movements of a neighbor attending to a task in the yard. Each small observation reinforced a connection between mind and environment, a slow, conscious perception that allowed the individual to inhabit the world in a measured, unhurried way. Even routine activities, the preparation of bread, the stirring of a pot, the folding of laundry, were conducted with awareness, each gesture deliberate, each motion flowing into the next like a continuous, gentle narrative of the day. In these moments, perception was not an abstract concept but a lived experience, a continuous engagement with the textures, sounds, and rhythms of life. The sense of sight was complemented by touch, the warmth of fabric against skin, the firmness of a wooden handle, the smoothness of a ceramic vessel, and by sound, the quiet resonance of a bell, the soft murmur of conversation, the occasional distant clatter that punctuated an otherwise unbroken calm. Taste and smell, too, contributed to this immersive environment. The sweetness of honey melting into porridge, the earthy scent of freshly turned soil in a garden, the subtle aroma of herbs drying on a windowsill. Each sensory input was integrated into a tapestry of perception that was both richly detailed and profoundly gentle, creating a foundation for reflection, calm, and ultimately, rest. Thus, the earliest hours of the day in a 19th century village or town unfolded with a slow, deliberate rhythm, a rhythm of sensory awareness and careful attention to routine. The quiet observations of light and shadow, the gentle sounds of household and street, the soft textures of objects and surfaces, and the subtle interplay of temperature and fragrance all contributed to a pervasive sense of calm and presence. In this environment, perception was not hurried, nor fragmented. It was continuous, deliberate, and absorbing, offering a gentle framework in which the mind could engage with the world without urgency or distraction. Such an existence, attuned to the natural and human rhythms of daily life, provided a foundation for rest, a gentle invitation to inhabit the present moment, and a soothing prelude to sleep. As the day matured, the sunlight deepened, spreading its warmth across the town and bathing each surface in a soft, golden hue that accentuated the textures of stone, wood, and fabric alike. Life, though still deliberate and measured, began to take on subtle variations, with each household and each individual engaged in routine tasks that, when observed closely, revealed an intricate pattern of domestic and social harmony. In kitchens, the hearths glowed steadily, with logs crackling in a low, comforting rhythm, and the preparation of meals continued with meticulous attention. Ingredients were handled slowly, measured with care, washed, chopped, and combined in ways that reflected both tradition and habit, the hands of those cooking moving with a deliberate grace, the motions almost ritualistic in their repetition. Outside the walls of these homes, the town streets gradually became a gentle scene of activity, with merchants arranging their goods in neat rows, the colors and textures of vegetables, fruits, and cloth catching the sunlight in subtle variations, creating a living tapestry of shape and hue. The sounds of life were soft but persistent. The muted clatter of wooden carts on cobblestones, the quiet murmur of conversations, the occasional laughter of children playing in the distance, and the faint ringing of a bell from the local church, marking the passage of hours in a way that was familiar and unhurried. In the domestic interiors of more prosperous households, the day's routines were observed with a particular kind of quiet care. Furniture, often carved with delicate detail, was polished and arranged to maximize order and aesthetic appeal. Small objects such as porcelain figurines or glass vases were dusted and placed with exacting attention, and textiles were smoothed or folded to display their patterns in the most pleasing manner. The perception of these spaces relied not only on sight but also on subtle sensory impressions. The faint scent of beeswax on polished wood, the gentle rustle of fine fabrics, the muted warmth radiating from a well-maintained hearth. Observing these details required patience and mindfulness, qualities cultivated over years of careful domestic attention. Children, often tasked with minor chores, learned to notice small variations in the arrangement of objects, the sheen of freshly polished surfaces, the way light refracted through a crystal or reflected from a polished table, absorbing these observations in a slow, deliberate manner that encouraged reflection and attentiveness. Beyond the walls of homes, the rhythm of the town continued with an understated precision. Craftsmen moved slowly but purposefully in their workshops, measuring and cutting materials, joining pieces with care, attending to details that might escape the notice of a hurried observer but were essential to the quality of their work. The sound of tools, hammers striking with gentle force, the rasp of a file across wood, the soft scrape of a plane, contributed to the ambient soundscape, punctuating the otherwise continuous quiet with a gentle, predictable rhythm. People moved along streets and pathways in a steady, unobtrusive flow, pausing occasionally to greet acquaintances, exchange news, or examine the goods displayed by merchants. Even the gestures of greeting were performed with a measured calm. A slight bow of the head, the subtle inclination of the hand, a low, soft-spoken word of recognition. These motions, repeated countless times throughout the day, created a sense of continuity and predictability that reinforced the gentle, immersive quality of daily life. The experience of perception at this hour was also shaped by the natural environment that surrounded the town. Gardens and fields, tended with quiet diligence, displayed a careful arrangement of plants, rows of vegetables, and flowering borders. Each leaf, each petal, each blade of grass was observed in the slow rhythm of cultivation, with attention to symmetry, growth patterns, and subtle shifts in color or texture. The air carried gentle fragrances of soil, herbs, and blossoms, mingling with the faint smoke of hearth fires and the distant scent of hay or wood from barns and fields. Birds, moving deliberately from branch to branch, added soft notes to the sensory landscape, their calls measured, sporadic, and integrated into the broader rhythm of life. Even the way light shifted throughout the morning, the gradual angle of sunlight, the changing intensity of shadows, the faint glimmer of reflected light on surfaces, was observed and appreciated by those attuned to the subtleties of their environment, contributing to a continuous, immersive perception of the world that required no effort to maintain but was deeply satisfying to experience. People's engagement with each other was similarly slow and intentional. Conversations were conducted with care, the inflection of the voice moderated, gestures restrained, and attention given to every nuance of expression. News and stories, when shared, were recounted in a measured cadence, with each phrase articulated clearly, each sentence allowed to unfold fully before the next began. The exchange of knowledge, instructions, or even casual observations was a form of shared mindfulness, with participants attuned to the rhythm of speech, the pauses between words, and the subtle cues of meaning conveyed in expression and tone. The effect was a quiet synchronization of awareness, a mutual presence in time and space that reinforced the gentle, immersive quality of daily life. Meals, when prepared, were consumed with similar deliberation. Bread, often freshly baked, was broken into pieces, observed for texture and aroma, and chewed slowly, allowing each flavor to be appreciated in its full subtlety. Soups or stews, simmered over low flames for hours, released fragrances gradually into the room, mingling with other domestic scents to create a complex, layered olfactory environment. Drinks, whether water, milk, or weak tea, were sipped and savored, each swallow marking a moment of presence, reinforcing a rhythm of attentiveness that permeated all activities of the day. In these moments, perception extended beyond mere observation to a full-bodied, multi-sensory experience, encompassing touch, smell, taste, and sound in a slow, deliberate continuum that encouraged both reflection and restfulness. By mid-morning, the town had settled into a predictable pattern. Movement continued, but with an unhurried grace. Tasks were performed with methodical attention, and perception remained focused on the gentle unfolding of everyday life. The awareness of detail, the interplay of light and shadow, the texture of materials, the progression of routine, was constant but unobtrusive, providing a foundation of calm that allowed the mind to rest even as it remained engaged. In this environment, the boundaries between action and observation blurred, creating a seamless flow of sensory and cognitive experience, a soft, continuous engagement with the world that was at once calming and absorbing. It was a state of mindful attention, slow and deliberate, offering a gentle rhythm in which the body and mind could settle, a perfect prelude to rest and slumber. As the morning gradually gave way to midday, the ambient light shifted, casting softer, warmer tones over streets, homes, and gardens alike, a light that emphasized texture and depth rather than color or movement, allowing every object to reveal itself with gentle clarity. Within homes, the day's tasks continued with a steady, unhurried pace, each activity a repetition of established routines, undertaken with deliberate attention and patient care. In kitchens, for instance, the preparation of midday meals involved careful chopping, stirring, and seasoning, motions that were repeated often enough to be instinctive yet slow enough to encourage mindfulness. The aroma of bread, simmering broths, or stewing vegetables filled the air, mixing with faint traces of herbs drying on windowsills and the residual warmth of the morning sun that had filtered through curtains and shuttered windows. Wooden surfaces, polished by repeated wiping and brushing, reflected the light subtly, highlighting the grain of the timber, the smoothness of the edges, and the soft contours of carved embellishments. Each of these details, though mundane, invited quiet attention, allowing the mind to rest in observation rather than action. Outside the home, the streets were characterized by a gentle, continuous rhythm of activity. Merchants and tradespeople moved with measured steps, attending to goods and customers with a calm efficiency that avoided haste or abrupt motion. The textures of the town, the cobblestones underfoot, the muted colors of timber frame houses, the delicate lines of painted shutters, and the subtle irregularities of plaster and brick were visible to those who paused long enough to notice, each surface a small point of engagement for patient perception. The sounds of daily life were similarly soft and harmonious, composed of repetitive, gentle elements. the scrape of a broom against stone, the clink of coins exchanged, the occasional creak of a cartwheel, and the distant tolling of a bell marking the passage of hours. Even the laughter of children, though slightly higher in pitch than other sounds, contributed to the continuity rather than disruption, as their play was slow, imaginative, and punctuated by periods of quiet observation. The natural environment, too, was fully present in this tableau of perception. Gardens, fields, and small orchards surrounding homes or lining streets displayed careful cultivation, each plant pruned, watered, and arranged with patient attention. The soft sway of leaves in a gentle breeze, the glint of sunlight on a morning dewdrop, and the occasional flutter of a bird's wings created subtle movements within an otherwise static setting, drawing attention to change and continuity simultaneously. The air carried layered scents, the earthy aroma of tilled soil, the faint perfume of flowers, the warm scent of baked goods, and the delicate, lingering traces of smoke from a distant chimney. Each sensation was integrated with others, forming a tapestry of perception that was rich but never overwhelming, detailed but never urgent, allowing the mind to rest within the gentle continuity of experience. Within homes, the rhythm of daily tasks extended to other forms of care and maintenance. Floors were swept and polished, furniture dusted and rearranged, textiles smoothed or folded, and small domestic repairs attended to with patience and diligence. In wealthier households, the interiors were punctuated by soft furnishings, carefully chosen decorative items, and books arranged with attention to both aesthetic balance and accessibility. The perception of these interiors required slow, deliberate observation. The way light reflected off a polished surface, the texture of a woven rug underfoot, the muted sheen of a varnished tabletop, and the subtle patterns in embroidered textiles. Each act of observation, whether through sight, touch, or smell, was a quiet, meditative engagement with the immediate environment, reinforcing a sense of calm and focus that carried through all activities of the day. People's interactions during this time were similarly deliberate and measured. Conversations were conducted in gentle tones, each word spoken with clarity, each pause observed and respected, and gestures kept soft and intentional. Individuals exchanged news, instructions, or observations slowly, savoring the rhythm of speech and the subtleties of expression. Even the simplest of exchanges, a nod, a smile, a passing remark about the weather or a plant in bloom, was conducted with mindfulness, contributing to a pervasive atmosphere of calm attentiveness. The social environment, like the physical one, was composed of small, repeating patterns that encouraged observation, reflection, and gentle immersion rather than excitement or haste. Perception during these hours extended to bodily awareness as well. People noted the warmth of the sun on their shoulders, the faint breeze against their skin, the firmness of a chair under their weight, or the gentle texture of fabric as they folded or arranged clothing. Meals were taken slowly, each bite observed for texture, flavor, and temperature. Drinks were sipped and savored with attention to the subtle differences between water, milk, or tea. Each moment of sensory engagement reinforced the unhurried rhythm of daily life, providing opportunities for reflection and quiet satisfaction, a soft but persistent awareness that linked mind, body, and environment into a continuous, calming flow. By late morning, the town and its inhabitants had settled into a steady, predictable rhythm. Movements were deliberate, sounds were soft and repetitive, and perception was sustained in a slow, conscious manner. Light and shadow played across objects and surfaces with subtle shifts that marked the passage of time without urgency. Each person, whether engaged in domestic tasks, trade, or simple observation, participated in a pattern of awareness that was soothing, absorbing, and continuous, a rhythm that allowed thought and perception to flow gently without interruption. The day's unfolding was neither exciting nor demanding. It was steady, predictable, and richly detailed, offering a quiet framework for reflection, mindfulness, and the gentle descent into relaxation that naturally precedes rest. In this environment, perception was both the activity and the reward. The mind, fully present yet undisturbed, absorbed the subtleties of texture, light, sound, and motion in a continuous, flowing pattern. Each observation reinforced the calm, measured tempo of life, each minor detail a point of engagement that required neither haste nor effort. Inhabitants experienced their surroundings fully, yet without strain, each gesture, each sound, each sensory impression contributing to a seamless, soothing awareness that allowed the body to settle and the mind to drift toward quietude, preparing for the gentle transition into the slower, softer hours that lay ahead. As midday reached its quiet peak, the sunlight hung steadily overhead, illuminating streets, homes, and fields with a consistent warmth that softened the contrast of shadows and revealed textures in gentle detail. The town, settled into the rhythms of daily life, exhibited a calm continuity, each movement and sound part of an unbroken pattern that flowed without urgency. Within homes, meals were often prepared with slow deliberation, a continuation of the morning routines, involving chopping vegetables, kneading dough, stirring stews, and arranging dishes for consumption. The warmth of the hearth contributed to a soft, pervasive heat that mingled with sunlight streaming through windows, casting muted reflections across polished wooden surfaces and smooth floors. Every household object, from a ceramic bowl to a carved wooden chair, revealed subtle details when observed attentively. The irregularities in glaze, the grain of wood, the gentle fraying of textile edges, all of which were noted with quiet mindfulness, contributing to a continuous sense of presence and observation. Beyond the walls of individual homes, streets and pathways retained their gentle rhythm of activity. Merchants continued arranging their goods, with fresh fruits, vegetables, and textiles displayed in carefully considered patterns that drew the eye without overwhelming it. The soft shuffle of feet on cobblestones, the occasional scrape of a cart, the murmur of low, respectful conversation, and the distant toll of a church bell formed a layered soundscape, punctuated by occasional birdsong or the faint flutter of a curtain in the breeze. Craftsmen worked with measured attention to their tasks, hands moving slowly but assuredly, creating objects with precision, each strike of a tool deliberate and resonant in the otherwise calm environment.